Good evening, everyone. My name is Shakanya Burden Knowlton, and I am the Community Relations Officer for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services within the Department of Homeland Security. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm very happy to be here tonight, and more importantly, it is a pleasure to meet with our community stakeholders and to provide information about the naturalization process. Please visit the table outside. I brought CDs that actually show how we conduct the naturalization interview because we recognize that many people, when they come to see USCIS, although we're the agency that adjudicates applications for immigration benefits, people are still afraid. People often hear rumors, and when they come to see us for a naturalization interview or an adjustment of status interview, they're very afraid. They think we're the boogeymen, but I'm here to show you that we're not. So I brought materials with me. Of course, they are free of charge. Tonight I bought the CDs, the DVDs actually, that depict the actual naturalization interview, so that when people come to see us, they're not afraid to talk to us. Certainly, you're going to be a little nervous because whenever we're being tested, even in college and high school, you can study and study and study. But for some reason, when the test is given to you, your mind draws a blank. So we just think it's a good idea to help people prepare for the naturalization exam. I've been with immigration for 34 years, and I can tell you that at one time we were not giving you the actual questions and the answers on the naturalization exam. We certainly weren't going out into communities and providing it to you. So we're very happy to be able to do that. I also have materials that discuss the unauthorized practice of immigration law because our philosophy is the wrong help will hurt. So please be very mindful of individuals that help you in the world of immigration. We tell people be careful, especially when you visit certain websites, because some, fraudulent practitioners develop websites that look exactly like ours. There are still people in the community that call us INS, and we have not been INS for 15 years. True, right? Very true. There are some people that will give individuals their original documents, their original birth certificates, marriage certificates, passports, and things like that. And unfortunately, in many respects, some of those unscrupulous people will prey on you and keep your documents as a means of having you to continue to pay. Just be very careful. So I came here to provide that information to you, and please take advantage of it. Even if it's not for you, it can be of use to someone in the community. Perhaps, someone later on down the line may be eligible for naturalization. So please avail yourself to these materials. And thank you once again for allowing me to be here. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.
Okay, so the second half of our presentation is dealing with what we like in the immigration world to call crimmigration. It's a combination of the criminal world and the immigration world together. And oftentimes, unfortunately, the two areas of law do overlap. I have a lot of criminal attorneys who call me. They, are asking for immigration advice as to how to deal with certain convictions and whatnot. So a lot of times we do have to deal with both. But more importantly, there's a lot of questions about, what do I do? What do I do if this happens to me? And like we said earlier, if you are in the United States and you are not a citizen, you are always subject to immigration laws. You're always subjected to criminal laws, and that across the board, even to citizens. But for my purposes, I do get a lot of questions about, this is what happens. I have a domestic violence case, or I was caught drinking and driving. What's going to happen? Okay, so we call this, crimmigration, and I thought it was going to be very helpful and very informative to actually bring somebody who has extensive experience in this area. And before you is Officer John Sala. Facebook is great. Um, so John actually worked, or Officer Sala, I'll address you the proper way. So he's worked for 11 years with the Custom and Border Protection Agency, which are the officers that are in the airport. So he has extensive knowledge about what happens when people are coming through the airport. And what kind of questions they ask and what kind of information they're seeking. And there's a lot of misinformation about, these officers are abusing us and they're not. But they have certain guidelines, they have certain processes, and Officer Salah is going to talk to us a little bit about that today. But currently, he is a detective with the Nassau County Police Department. And he's very, very knowledgeable about what he does. But most importantly, he is a longtime friend of mine. So he's a great guy, and you can definitely ask him a lot of questions later on after the program. But I'm going to turn the mic over to John to talk a little bit about what you do if you actually have committed a crime. So.
Thanks for that amazing introduction. Is this good? Great. Yeah, no, we'll leave it here. So, as Anne has said, I am a detective with the Nassau County Police Department, and I've spent a number of years with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. But let's get some things out of the way. I am an officer. I am a detective. But I'm also a father of 3. I'm the son of immigrant parents. I have to run to practices. I have to pay my bills. I sometimes have to work 2 jobs. I am the same person as the person living next to you. And the only thing that differentiates me from you or anyone else in the world is who pays me. That's it. Something as simple as that. So now that I am like you, let's get the other portion out of the way. I get nervous when I get pulled over. I do. I see red and blue lights. What did I do? My heart's pounding. I have my hands on the wheel. Lower the window. How you doing, officer? What did I do? And guess what? The same thing happens when I'm pulling someone over. But I have different thoughts. Is this person going to shoot me? Does this person like police? Are they even going to roll down their window, or are they going to turn me into a YouTube sensation? Should I even continue doing my job? Same anxiety, right? Because I'm human. I feel the same thing you do. At the end of the day, if we all remember that, we all kind of can share that experience. Let's go to the next aspect of it. We've got 2 different worlds there. We have U.S. Customs, and we have Nassau County. One's a federal officer who works at the border, and one's a state and local officer that works within the border. And we'll get to that. So in my time with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, my #1 priority was one thing, and one thing only. Detect, deter, and eliminate any threats against the United States. Terrorism. Terrorism was our #1 priority. And we used 3 things: technology, intelligence, and officer expertise. And thankfully, we've been quite successful, right? But how do we do that? Yes, we do check documents. Yes, we do check bags. Yes, we do deny people at ports of entry. And yes, we ask a whole lot of questions that are very personal. Why? The fact of the matter is 99% of the people that come through the border are law-abiding citizens. right? Coming to visit, coming to sightsee, coming to study. There's a million reasons why they come. It's that 1%. But that 1% can do a whole lot of damage. Now, if you take the number of 1% and you put it up against the millions of people that come to New York a year, that's a lot of people that you have to find. Not only that, you only have a couple of minutes to make a decision. Is this person in front of me going to do harm? Now, yes, we get the best training in the world, but we're not superhuman. Yes, we have great technology, but technology sometimes fails. That cell phone in your pocket fails you at least once a week sometimes. Drops a call, or you miss a text, or you didn't hear a sound, or you just set your alarm wrong, like I do every morning. But the fact of the matter is, we have that, and then we have intelligence. So at the border, my ability to search you is almost infinite. Almost. And the reason why is you just need a small level of suspicion. And I get all kinds of questions. Can they check my computer or my phone? Yes, they can. Why? Where's the best place to store information? Your computer and your phone. So if you have information on your computer or your phone that has to do with anything illegal, we'll find it. At least customs will find it. Can they search my bags? Yes. Your bags and your person are subject to search whenever you cross the border. Can they ask me where I'm going and what I'm doing? Yes, they can. Now let me ask you a question. You're coming to a new country. You're anxious. That officer is anxious as well. And what makes for a good interaction is realizing that I realize that you're coming to an unfamiliar place, dealing with something that's unfamiliar, probably from an area that doesn't have the best interaction with police or military, right? And I'm sensitive to that. But then again, I also have to find the truth. I also have to figure out what's going on. So if you come to me and I ask you simple questions about where you're going and what you're doing, and it's obvious that you're not being honest with me, then what happens? Because this is our first interaction. We don't know each other. My level of suspicion now rises. I'm showing you the other side of this interaction. Why would this person lie to me of something as simple as they're going to their, aunts or uncles, or they're going to their mom or dad's? Why would they do that? Right? Wouldn't you feel strange about that? You know why? Because they probably had somebody who gave them bad advice, or they read something on Facebook that said, don't tell them that your uncle's here and you're going to be living with them, and eventually in 6 months you're going to call in and try to do a change of status and try to get your green card. Don't tell them that. But then what happens? Guess what? We all have had parents or adults catch us in lies. And it's not because we're bad liars. It's because physiologically we show it on our faces every time we lie. We do. If you have kids, you see it almost immediately. In adults, automatically, especially at the border. So the thing is, why should I be honest? Because at the end of the day, it's that mutual respect that interaction fosters. It's that ability to not be so, the word I'm looking for I'm missing, but the ability to be honest with the person in front of you and say, this is what I'm coming for. My mother's here. My father's here. My uncle's here. I had a break, or I had this, or I had that, and I'm visiting them for some time. Okay? At the end of the day, a majority of the people who have arrived at JFK have already been vetted. You've gone through the consulate process. You've answered the questionnaires. You've talked to the consulate officer. They've done a background check. This is the last and first line of defense. So what that officer is doing is that officer is waking up in the morning, leaving their family, going to work, and doing the job they've been asked to do. But they also understand that if they fail at their job, there are serious consequences. And those serious consequences affect their friends, their families, their neighbors, your friends, your family, and your neighbors. Because whether we like to believe it or not, for whatever reason anyone has, there are lots of people in the world looking to do harm to innocent people. We can all agree on that. We can all agree we're human. And we can all agree that the person standing in front of us is human. The next interaction that we have is with state and local law enforcement, right? That's quite different. I have a different set of rules. I need to have some suspicion, some serious suspicion, in order to do a search. I can ask you certain questions. I can do certain things. The only problem is, it's quite different. When you come off of a plane at JFK, you've most likely been screened. The probability of you doing me personal harm is probably low. Can we agree? Yeah. Because I don't have to worry about a gun that you might have on you. I don't have to worry about a knife that you may have on you. And I probably have a good number of my colleagues around me at the airport. We've all traveled, and there's a huge cadre of individuals around us. So I know help is around. I feel safer as an officer that way. But on the street, I don't. Every time I stop a car, it's my first interaction, for the most part. I have to be cognizant of the fact that this person may, at some point in our interaction, want to do harm to me. They may have a weapon in their car. They may want to fight me. And I may need to call someone to come help me, but that person might not be available for a good 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on where we are. So my wife, my kids, my family depends on me to be safe and come home the same way I left. The next thing that I have to remember is that my weapon that I carry to work to protect you and myself works the same way in anyone else's hands as it does in mine. There is a statistics. I can't remember it. But a majority of police officers that are shot with their own weapon. It is taken from them and they're shot with their own weapon. And if that weapon is taken away from me and put forward and could be used against anyone else. So there's that interaction. We got those three things out of the way. The three things are that your interaction with law enforcement at the border will be drastically different than your interactions with law enforcement inside the border. And your interactions with law enforcement, you should always remember that the person standing across from you is probably feeling the same anxiety, is probably thinking the same thing that you are, but on the opposite side of the fence. So now we got into this crimmigration thing, right? Crimmigration. You want my best advice? Don't get arrested. Best advice in the world. Don't get arrested. Well, things happen, this and that and that. Right. We're all adults. A majority of adults don't get arrested. So don't get arrested, and you won't have any crimmigration issues. It sounds so easy. But what happens if you do? You tell me. Call Ann. The truth of the matter is, depending on where you are, is depending on how they interact with ICE and how they report. But let's take ICE out of the equation. You get arrested, you're going to get fingerprinted, and your charges are going to go into a computer. That computer goes to a central computer, which the FBI maintains. At any given time, your name could be written in that computer, ran in that computer, and your criminal history will come up. Guess what they do during the adjudication process? They run your criminal history. It'll come up whether we report it to ICE or not. When you come through the border, your fingerprints and your name are run through that same computer. If you have a criminal history, it will come up. Goes back to my first bit of advice. Don't get arrested. But then again, people might think I'm biased with my advice. So, why don't I give this opportunity to you? What should you do when you get stopped by the police? Why don't you ask me? What are some of your concerns? It's a discussion. It's not a lecture. Anybody ever been stopped by the police? Have a bad experience? Right there, that young lady. Tell me about it. Okay. I was scared. Huh? Okay, so tell me about it. Where? Okay. Right. It's simple. Right. What happened? What did the officer say? Right. Did he seem like a regular guy or she seem like a regular girl? And yeah. So it was a good interaction. Anybody ever have a bad interaction? I've had a bad interaction. I have. The guy did not know that I was an officer. I'm not going to say where it was. I'm not going to say how it happened. Pulled me out, patted me down, had a whole bunch of questions for me. I was just very nonchalant about it. Finally saw the badge in my wallet. Said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a badge." He goes, "Why didn't you say anything?" I said, "Because you're doing your job." He goes, and then you saw he was a little embarrassed. Fact of the matter is, he told me that there was a report of a car that looked like mine that had just committed a crime that just left the area that I was in. He was doing his job. But you know what I could tell? He was scared as could be. Because what had occurred was a robbery. It was an armed robbery. What if I took on the attitude of, do you know who I am? What if I took on the attitude of, I ain't getting out of this car? Do you think the interaction would have ended the same way? Probably not. Because his level of anxiety was up here. My level was right around here, but I know I didn't do anything wrong, so I should have probably brought it down here. If both of us were up here, it would have probably been bad. And like you said, at least all of us in here are good people. So if we've done nothing wrong, we have nothing to worry about. The next thing is, the street is not a courtroom. It's not a courtroom. Don't turn it into one. Don't argue the points of law in the street. You have a bad interaction, end the interaction in the most appropriate way. Take your ticket, take whatever, and then there are thousands of ways that you could remedy that issue. You can call their boss. You could fill out an online form, depending on where you are, and you can take care of that problem after the fact. If you get arrested, you could take care of that problem in court. We live in one of the greatest nations in the world, in that if you go to court, especially in New York, and you can show that there was no intent of, there was no ill intent, the majority of the time, in most of the laws, you're found not to have, what's the word I'm looking for, culpable, it's not, yeah, culpable intent to have committed a crime. And you know what? You either probation, pay a fine, go to a program. So there are those things. So I've said my piece. Let's go back to it. I'm human, you're human. If we all remember that, it works. Border interactions are quite different than the interactions inside of the United States. And that the best advice that anyone could give any of your clients, any of your friends, any of your family is don't get arrested. Because whether you're in a state that's friendly with ICE or in a city or a municipality that's friendly with ICE, one way or another, when you have some sort of interaction with USCIS or with CBP or with the Border Patrol, they're going to see your criminal history. Anybody have any questions for me? Come on, I wasn't that good. You have to have a question. You have a question, young lady? Go ahead. Who's got a question? Nobody? Anne's got questions for me. We're streaming, by the way. Just remember that. What's your question, Anne?
No, so I get a lot of questions about, in the event that you are arrested, like what kind of crimes do they need to worry about, like that ICE will come knocking on their door? That's a very, it's a big concern that if they, have one domestic violence.
You touched upon that. Crimes of moral turpitude. And in the INA, crimes of moral turpitude could be anything as simple as a DWI or petty larceny or anything of that sort. The fact of the matter is, there is discretion. I have discretion on the street, and officers have discretion at the ports of entry to a point, and USCIS officers, adjudication officers, have discretion to a point. I'm going to talk about my experience. In my experience, if it was a one-off thing, if it was something, and we're talking now at the border, we're not, because we don't do this at the normal jailhouse in the first precinct or whatever precinct you end up in. My experience is, you see that this was the first thing, and the person's honest about it and says, this is what occurred and this is why it occurred, and then they go back and they say, and you see that they haven't gotten in any trouble since then, that's a great case to say, hey, we're going to look past that one crime, that crime of moral turpitude as it would be in the INA, but it's a simple violation in New York State penal law. The two laws are very different, and they view violations of the law very differently. There's one thing I forgot to mention. If you're a victim of a crime and you're undocumented, you are entitled to the same rights as anyone else. Do never allow, and this happens in domestic violence a lot, never allow somebody to tell you if you call the police, they're going to report you to ICE. They're going to deport you. If you're a victim and you're a victim of a crime, call right away. The police will protect you regardless of what your immigration status is. And that's a message that really needs to get to everybody, especially victims of domestic violence. There is no way they're going to pull your paperwork. They can't do that. Okay? So, if you say I slapped you around and you call the police, the next thing I do when I get out of jail is I'm going to call and pull all your support paperwork away. There are protections in the law for that. Okay? If you call and you call the police, I'm going to tell them you're illegal and they're going to arrest you and not me. That's not true. They're going to report you to ICE and they're going to come the next day. That's not true. I have never seen it see it happen, and there are things within the law to protect victims of crimes. It's a U visa. Look it up. Next session. What's your next question?
I mean, you answered all of them.
I did. You do.
Aside from national security issues, what are other reasons to turn someone away? Like your CBP experience.
My CBP. There are hundreds. Okay. So, yeah. Well, let's put it this way. In customs, not only do we have the national security mission, we have the drug interdiction mission, we have the mission in assuring that intellectual property rights aren't stolen, so we protect the commerce of the United States, agriculture, immigration, weapons, corporate espionage, believe it or not. Wow. I'm probably missing a good 70 to 80 more things that we look for. Why would somebody get turned away? Something as simple as lying to an officer could possibly get you turned away. You went through the visa process. You're telling me you're coming to visit you're a student, you study medicine, that you're coming to visit your mom for 3 weeks, and you're going right back to your original origination country. Okay, great. What year are you in? Oh, my 3rd year. What school are you in? Oh, I go to St. George's College. Where is that? Oh, it's in this city. That's great. Where are you going? Who are you going to visit? My mom. Is your mom expecting you? Yes. Could I have mom's phone number? Oh, I don't have it. Well, who did you put down as your emergency contact on your ticket? My mom. All right, I'll look it up for you. Not a problem. I'll get the phone number. How long are you staying? 3 weeks. But your ticket is open, and it says you have 6 months on this ticket. Are you staying for the 3 weeks or the 6 months? Well, it's up in the air. Okay. So, is there anything else I should know about your trip that you're not telling me? No. Let's take a look in your bag. Sure. I open your bag. Your high school diploma's in there. Your photo albums. A letter from your friend saying, I'm going to miss you. Good luck in America. This is a real thing. I'm going to miss you. Good luck in America. You have, like, every personal effect possible that shows that you're immigrating to the country rather than taking a 3-week visit. Do you want to know what else kind of gets you caught? I'm going to call mom. Hey, mom. Where does your child go to school? Oh, she hasn't been in school in a year. Oh, okay. Are you expecting her? She's here? Yeah, she's here at JFK. Oh, that's great. What is she doing here? That's a good question. What is she doing here? I don't know. She told me she might visit. Okay. How long is she staying with you? I don't know. Okay. It's the simplest thing in the world. Simple questions about who, where, why, and how. And all those answers you just gave to me wrong. Right? And the stuff in your bag solidified it. You went through the consulate process, and You told them you're coming for a visit. Your visa is a B1, B2. I see that. I know what it's for. I see the address you're going to on your customs declaration. Or it's not even a customs declaration. It's all electronic now. And this is your first trip here. But then now we're going to go into deeper questions, and I'm going to interview you. And you're going to, one way or another, slip up on what your reason is. And guess what? In the INA, there's a reason for me to turn you away and send you back home because there's enough articulable evidence that shows that you have violated the reason of your visa or the classification of your visa. Make sense?
Intent, basically.
Intent, but also the honesty that comes along with your intent. I got to tell you, if you were to tell that officer, listen, I really don't know what I'm doing. My mom lives here. There are a couple of, I was in my home country. I missed her. I may stay a little while with her. I brought these things with me so that she could see it. And guess what? That makes sense to that officer. She hasn't been home in 8 years. And I brought the photo albums. And guess what? My friend wrote me a letter thinking that I was going to stay here, and that's the advice that she gave me. But I've never been here. So I don't know if I'm even going to like it here. But if I do, I'm probably going to go back home and try to get my visa the right way. And you probably have a better outcome that way than lying the whole time. That was a great question. Young lady. No, yes and no. Because what I had said earlier, there's a lot of discretion. But that discretion is not ultimate. So when I was a supervisor, after the interview process and the myriad of paperwork that they do, they bring it to me and I review it. If there's something in there that I don't feel I'm comfortable with, I'll go straight out and say, hey, tell me more about this. Tell me about this. And I'll keep doing checks. And people get so annoyed by that because they're like, they've been stuck in customs for 4 hours. It's probably true. They've been stuck for 3 hours. I get these phone calls all the time. Yeah, because they're trying to determine the intent of the individual in front of them. And if that means doing research, you're trying to give that person the benefit of the doubt. But there's more than one pair of eyes that looks at that paperwork. And here's the best part of it. That paperwork stays with the file, with your A number, for almost life. So USCIS sees that paperwork in your file. The consulate officer overseas sees that paperwork in your file. Once you're issued an A number, that A number is your Social Security as far as as immigration issues are concerned. If you crossed over the border at Texas through some in between the ports of entry and you stepped foot in the United States, you're now entitled to as a victim, you're now entitled to the same rights as anyone else in the country. You are. If you cross over and you walk out of, let's say you came off a ship and you were a stowaway on the ship and you jumped off the ship in Newark and you got robbed in Newark and you call the police, guess what? You're protected like any other victim. Doesn't mean you're going to get status. Let's make that clear. Doesn't mean you're going to get status. Don't go out and try to be a victim in order to get status. It's not guaranteed. And that process in itself goes through a good adjudication process to determine what you're a victim of, how you became a victim, and so on and so forth. And guess what? That local police department also has to sign off on that form saying, I certify that John Doe was a victim of robbery. These are the circumstances surrounding his case, and they submit that as well. Thanks for asking. It's a good question. Anyone else? What? You're the time police. I guess. Thank you for having me. The time police is kicking me out of here. Thank you very much. It's been fun and an honor.
A special thank you to Officer John Sala. That was a great presentation. Just to continue what he was saying, a revocation, if you do lie, and there's a lot of bad advice that's always given to people when they're coming through from overseas, like don't say this and don't say that. But the revocations of visas and the cancellation of visas that happen inside of the airport are lifetime. So, you know, in order for you to be able to go back and be able to get another visa after that incident has happened is tremendously difficult. So we always tell people, I always consult with people overseas before they come, you know, don't lie. You know, honesty is the best policy. It does play off that way, you know, in every scenario that I've seen. So, but I think John gave a lot of very good information about, you know, what to do and what not to do when you're coming through the border. Okay, so we don't have too much time left, so I'm going to be running through just a few more topics. The 601 waiver of inadmissibility. So there are people who are found to be inadmissible into the United States, meaning they cannot become green card holders for a number of reasons, okay? But it's not the end of the world. I mean, there are options that are given to green card holders or non-immigrants to be able to overcome those inadmissibility bars. So the first being EWI, which is entry without inspection. We talked about earlier people who are coming through the border. There's something called a 601 waiver for those people. If you can prove there's extreme hardship to a U.S. citizen or legal permanent spouse, fiance, or parent. Children are not included in the 601 waiver, but if any of those categories, someone's in the country and he's been here for like 20 years, now has a spouse who's a U.S. citizen or a green card holder or has a parent, they can qualify for this waiver and overcome that unlawful entry. People who have overstayed their visa, if you overstay and you leave the country, you're subjected to a bar, 3 years. To come back into the country. If you've been here illegally for more than a year, you have a 10-year bar. This is another really bad advice that people give. They go, oh, consular processing, yeah, go finish your paperwork. They leave after they've been here illegally for so long, and they don't realize that they're now going to be barred from returning for 10 years. And the only way they're going to be able to continue with the green card process is if they file for a waiver of inadmissibility. Fraud and misrepresentation. Again, if you've misrepresented or you have submitted fraudulent documents, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. There's always a way to overcome these. You have to explain it. You have to, you know, basically ask for forgiveness in a general sense. And the same thing for criminal activity. If depending on the type of criminal activity, it ranges from felonies to misdemeanors. If 15 years has passed, you can file a waiver, and that will not be accounted against you. Okay. Again, with the extreme hardship, another type of waiver you can do for criminal grounds. Okay. So again, it's very important to have your case assessed by an attorney. Know what options you do have. Don't just think, oh my God, I have this criminal record, it's never going away, and I'm not going to be able to ever apply. And if you are applying for a green card, make sure if you do or do not need a waiver with it, because they will stop it at that point before you can apply. Okay, so asylum. I'm also going to run through this just because of time, but there are two ways you can apply for asylum in the United States. Okay, you can apply affirmatively, meaning you are applying with an application at one of the U.S. The asylum offices. There's only 10 asylum offices in all of the United States, okay? It's not like the USCIS offices where every state has one or two. Asylum offices are jurisdictional, meaning depending on where you live in the United States, there's one office that is responsible, okay? So a lot of times out in the Midwest, you're in the middle of nowhere, and there's an office that's maybe in another state, and that's the office that's going to be responsible for your case. New York has their own, New Jersey has their own, so we don't have that problem here. But you have to know where you're living and which office is going to be responsible for your case. Okay, that's the affirmative. You do affirmative meaning you're going to be sitting in front of an officer, telling them your story for asylum, and then they ultimately make a decision based on your case. Defensive, on the other hand, is when you're in immigration court. If you're in active deportation proceedings, you have the option of applying for asylum in court. Okay, so if that might be the only option that you might have, but you can file an application with the court. It will go through a trial, and you would give testimony in front of a judge, bring your witnesses. There's an attorney for the government that's present, and then your own a defense attorney is there as well. There's a 1-year statutory requirement for asylum. So at the time of your entry is when the clock starts. So you only have 1 year for the entry. So if you're in and out as a visitor, every time you make an entry into the United States, that 1 year starts again. Okay, so I tell people this: if you're close to your 1 year and your visa is still valid, leave the country, come back in. It'll jumpstart the 1 year, and you'll still have a year ahead to apply for asylum. Now, there are certain grounds that you can apply for asylum. There's only 5 of them. So you have to be able to identify on the application on what basis you're applying for asylum. I will list that on the next slide. But the last one is documentary evidence. This is very crucial. I've seen applications, or I've seen asylum cases across my desk, and they are like just bare-boned applications. No evidence being submitted, no statement about what kind of persecution that they've suffered, and they just submit the case and just assume that they're going to be able to tell their story to an officer. It's not enough. You have to show documentary evidence. Now, there are countries where it's almost impossible to get that kind of documents, like police reports, medical reports. You know, if you don't have those and there's no way the government would ever provide that to you to base your persecution on. There's alternative ways to show your persecution. Okay, this is you know, when you consult with an attorney, they will tell you, okay, you have a story, let's see if we can get other. I've taken pictures of scars of people when they've gotten injured, and I've submitted that as a documentary form of evidence, and it works, you know, and they show it to them during the interview. So there's always ways if you can't actually get a police report from your country. Okay, so the next one is, these are the 5 enumerated grounds under the INA that you can apply for asylum: race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, which is basically if you have identifiable traits as a group in your country. Okay, like if you are of a particular tribe. I get this in a lot with African clients. If you're part of a tribe within your country and they have identifiable groups and you're always attacked, then this is considered a particular social group. Okay, it's very, very specific, but sometimes when I'm evaluating a case, I might be able to find certain criteria that might identify them in a group that is heavily persecuted in the country. And of course, political opinion, being that you hold a political opinion that is contrary to your government's political opinion. So there is that. Sometimes you might not even have to have a particular religious belief or a political opinion, but it's something called imputed. Like someone may think you have that belief or you have that political opinion. They assume you do, and on that basis, they're persecuting you. So nothing is very black and white. Things can actually be defined in such a way that you can fall under one of these categories and be eligible for asylum. Okay, but I'm going to show you just how the process for an affirmative asylum case usually will go. We prepare the application. In my office, I like to prepare everything ahead of time. Some people just file the 589 application and then decide to do their submit their supporting documents at the time of the interview. I discourage this because an officer does not want to look into heavy documentation the day of the interview. They're already swamped as it is. You're going to put them in a very bad mood if you're giving them that much stuff the day of the interview. Like Newark and the Bethpage, New York asylum offices, I know they request that the evidence be submitted at least 2 to 3 weeks before your interview. So you have the option to do that, but do not bring the evidence that day and expect they're going to be able to review it and consider it in their decision. So I like to file everything in the beginning when it's prepared. It gets filed in the proper asylum office, okay? A lot of people come to me and they say, oh, well, I live in, you know, New Jersey, but I want to file in Florida, or, you know, vice versa. You can't do that. It's based on the address, the residence where you're living, okay? So you, whatever, it's not where the lawyer is, it's where the applicant is. So you have to, that's where they will know which office to be sending it to. You're going to attend an interview. I actually have on my YouTube channel, I have a preparation, like small short preparation interview. I've just lost it. I have a small video on how to prepare for an asylum interview. Okay, it's very short, but it just tells you what to expect, how to be ready to answer the very, very systematic questions that they ask. They don't just come up with questions that they have specific questions they're asking for. They're bullets. They're the legal points that you have to satisfy in order to get approved for asylum. Okay, those points have to be there. So my video kind of goes over that, but it's very important to be prepared. You just can't walk in and just tell a story. Okay, now since beginning of 2018, all of the asylum offices have changed their asylum process. I don't know if you know, there are certain people who have applied years ago. They've been waiting for like 3-4 years to get an interview. In 2018, they changed that process. They wanted to eliminate the long times, so they started scheduling the newer cases as soon as possible. Okay, so that 180-day wait time for the work authorization, that's after filing. Okay, a lot of the newer cases that got filed never even reached the 180-day work point because they already got their decisions. If they're approved, then you have work authorization based on the approval. But if you are denied or referred to immigration court, then you would have to apply for that in the immigration court system. Then you usually wait a couple of weeks and you get a decision on the actual case. Okay, some offices, they mail it depending on if you're living far away. Others will tell you to come pick it up. New York and New Jersey have a pickup policy after 2 weeks, so you'll go and get your decision. Okay, if you're approved, we always hope that people get approved, then after 1 year you are able to apply for a green card. If you are not, okay, this is where it gets a little tricky. If you are still in status, like if you're still on a B2 visa that has not expired, which became a problem, your case gets denied, okay? And you're kind of stuck in this bubble because you're in non-immigrant status and you're not an approved asylum. So what is supposed to happen is that you leave the United States, you go back to your country. But a lot of people have not done that. And this is so new, it's only happened since last year, that a lot of people have not left. If you are not in immigration status at all and you've applied for asylum, then automatically the asylum office will refer your case to immigration court, okay? Because you are actually in deportation proceedings at that point. You're not in status, you have no asylum, so they refer you to court. Now they tell you in the letter this is not a denial. It's you're referred to court and you're eligible to apply for asylum again in immigration court. Only this time you'll have a little bit of a harder chance of trying to convince a court after you've been denied by an officer. But we've got plenty of cases where they're referred to court and are still won. And sometimes it's because you just had a very bad interview, and that does happen a lot of times. They just had the applicant couldn't get their story across. The officer wasn't asking the right questions or follow-up questions, and they get stuck, and it doesn't happen. And that usually tends to happen from the cases that I get that get to court. They just didn't have a thorough interview process. I personally attend all of my asylum interview cases because I have to make sure what is being said during that interview, what the officer is asking, and how the applicant is responding. So it is very important, if you do file an asylum application with an attorney, make sure that that attorney is there. They should be. And you should be having a very good interpreter who is able to communicate your story in the language that you speak to the immigration officer and vice versa, the questions being asked to you. So that all of these are very important points that are missed, and a lot of people, they lose the opportunity to get an asylum approval with an asylum office. Okay, so this is just a general idea of how the application process works. So there are just a few changes in policy that we were made aware of within the last few months. We talked about the first two about they were speeding up the scheduling of interviews as of 2018, if when you're in status, when you're still in status, your B2 technically is not valid anymore because you're not in non-immigrant intent. You're not here visiting anymore. You've already established that you are here permanently to apply for asylum. So it's not valid. You can't just continue on B2 status. So you actually do have to leave the United States unless you find an alternative way. We also just got notification that the New York and the New Jersey and Boston offices they sent a lot of their offices to the southern border, and they're supposed to be expecting delays again. This happened. This came out in the summer, and as of right now, we have not seen any slowdowns yet. I've been in the asylum office like every week now, and I haven't seen anything. So they actually hired new officers, so they're keeping the same scheduling. So if you do hear that, oh, the New York Jersey office has closed, or they're not accepting any. I've been hearing some rumors going around. It's crazy that asylum offices are closing. They're not accepting cases. They're not actually going to have interviews until after the new year. I mean, it's like, it's constant. So make sure you're getting your information in the right places, and I'll tell you which websites to go to verify this information, or call your lawyer, and they'll probably be able to tell you. The proposals for filing fees, this is also something that they have been talking about, and it may take effect in 2020. We're not sure yet, but as of right now, asylum applications are free, and so are first-time filings for work authorization. But they are proposing to actually put a filing fee amount on it. We don't know what that's going to be, but if you like my Facebook page, I will let you know as soon as I know. Okay, and the last thing is this is pertaining only to people who are coming through the southern border. As you know, and it's been on the news, that there's a lot of people coming through the border and applying for asylum. So they're trying to make it they're basically discouraging people from just pouring in and applying for asylum as their only alternative. So there's a third country asylum rule that came out that basically says that if you are passing through all these countries on your way up to the United States, and you can claim asylum in any other third country besides the United States, then you are barred from applying for asylum now. It's a rule that's going to be heavily litigated if they're not starting it already, but this is pertaining to people coming through Mexico. Okay. I am going to just talk very briefly because of time. Yes, we have a question. Yes, John. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does it help my case if I go back to the country in that 1 year period that I'm claiming asylum from?
Are you saying after they get approved?
Or after I put in my application for asylum?
Okay, well, if you've applied for asylum and you leave the country, it is automatically considered an abandonment of the application. You cannot come back, especially if you're going out to the country that you're claiming. There are people there that are trying to kill you. You can't go back to that country, come back, and resume applying for asylum. That is an automatic abandonment. As far as your other question, if you do get approved, and that's a very good question, because people who get approved, they always ask me, well, when can I go back to my country? Am I allowed to visit? That 1 year period between the approval and applying for a green card, absolutely you should not be going anywhere, because as John will tell you, as a CBP officer, if you get approved and you get a refugee travel document, you are allowed to travel internationally. They're not going to lock you here, so you can go and you can visit. But if you go back to your country that you claimed asylum, and they're coming back and they see that stamp from your country, guess what? You're going to be in a lot of trouble, because they're going to say, why did you visit? Okay? So they can actually start proceedings to remove asylum from you, because they're going to say, you're no longer fearful if you return to that country. All right? And in addition to that, people who get their green card based on asylum, they're not aware that their green card actually has a code on it. The code says that they got their green card through asylum. And if you are going back to that country and spending 3-4 months vacation there, again, you're going to meet someone like John in the airport who's going to say, why did you travel to that country for 3 months? So I always advise people, please tell me your travel plans before you go, because this can not only start proceedings to remove a green card from you, but they can go all the way back to a limited asylum. And to add to that, because it doesn't end, when you apply for naturalization, it's the same thing. They're going to be looking at all of your trips as a green card holder, all of them. So if you have multiple trips to your country of persecution, it's going to be very questionable about whether it is safe for you to go back and reside. And it is absolutely within the authority of immigration authorities that they can send you back to your country and say you no longer need asylum. So that's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that comes up a lot. People always ask me, when can I go back? You know, so yeah, you have to be very careful about the timing. They usually don't. You're absolutely right. Okay, so we're already past 9. The lottery program, all I'm going to say is that as of the new lottery, the 2021, you have up until November 5th for entries for the 2021. 2020, people are checking their entries. You have to remember that when you get your confirmation number and you go to check in May of that year, you should continue to keep your confirmation number, because what happens is the people who are selected, they go through the process and then they get up to the interview stage. You'll be surprised how many people get rejected. So they will be rejected and they're going to start another selection process, which is later in September. You have up until September 30th of that year to be reselected. We have a question. Yes.
Some friends in Egypt, they have a problem to log in into the website. Is there any problem?
No, there's no problem. What happens is because of just the sheer volume of people going in at the same time, sometimes the website crashes. So what ends up happening, they have to kind of reboot the system. So there's nothing wrong with the website. They just have to try another time to go in. Sometimes I tell people do it in the middle of the night when like not a lot of people are online. It helps to put in your entries at that time. But yeah, they try to fix it as quickly as possible when they hear.
If you don't mind, we would like to mention again all your contacts.
Yeah, I'm gonna list everything at the end.
People they ask for it.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the questions that are coming in for the people that are watching. There was lots of questions that came in. We're going to answer a few of them really quickly. I know everybody's dying to get home on this Friday night. I'm just going to conclude with this point. Why hire an immigration lawyer? As you heard from Ms. Brent earlier from USCIS, she was talking about immigration scams, okay? I can't stress enough how much this happens, especially with the lottery program. Just the sheer online misinformation that's out there, websites that are fraudulent, they're duplicating government websites and going on there and taking money from people and documentation. So I always like to use this analogy for the doctors in our house, that when you have medical symptoms, okay, you know, do you need to go to a doctor? Probably not, you know. Can you self-diagnose? Sure you can. You can go online on a WebMD, find your symptoms, diagnose yourself, and take whatever medications. But when problems actually start to arise and you're almost dying, that's the time you probably go see your doctor, okay? So it's not required for you to get an immigration attorney. You can probably fill out the forms by yourself if you think it's that simple. But the fact of the matter is immigration is extremely complicated, and the smallest details on all of these forms. I mean, USCIS is very good at giving instructions, guiding people, telling them how to fill out the forms, but every person's situation is different from the next, okay? And one simple mistake is not just costly, but it could actually prevent you from applying for many different things in the future, okay? So if you think you're saving money and, you know, going to the local guy in the corner, the notario, who is, gonna fill out the paperwork for like, $200. He's gonna give you $200 worth of work, okay? And at the end of the day, if something happens and there's a problem, guess what? You're not gonna find him. You're not gonna be able to call him. He's already gotten his money, and the problem sits with you, okay? As immigration attorneys, and I'll speak for myself, I can't speak for other attorneys, but we put our name on these applications. We represent you in front of the all these agencies. So when problems happen, they send that to us. We're the ones that have to answer for it. So that's a liability and that's a responsibility we take as attorneys. It's not just a matter of we are more expensive than most notarios, but for a reason. We're educated. We've learned the law. I have studied the immigration codes, so I know what they are looking for. So when you come and you consult with me, I've already evaluated it in my head as an immigration officer, okay? So it's very important. I deal with people like John in CBP. I deal with people in USCIS. I talk to them on a regular basis. So I know the issues that they're looking for, and I know how to address it with my clients. So it is important to have an immigration attorney. Yes, John?
By the way, there are two new laws in New York State. If you are a victim of someone who tries to fraudulently show that they're immigration-related help,
Mm-hmm.
you can call the police and ask for assistance that way.
Yeah.
And the laws are very strict.
Yeah. Yeah, what John was saying, if nobody heard him, like there are laws now that are being enforced to crack down on these notarios because they're really ruining people's lives. It's not just a matter of just stealing money. So law enforcement's doing a great job on, closing down a lot of these agencies. So definitely. But yeah, consult with an attorney. Doesn't have to be my office, but consult with an attorney. That's number one. Go to the right websites, okay? I have made a few websites. These are the common ones that people use. And by the way, if anybody wants a copy of these slides, just leave your email and we can email them to you. So you don't have to take pictures. And I know everybody's been trying to capture that. I'll email, don't worry. So these are the common websites that you should be using when you are looking for forms, if you're looking for the visa bulletin that I presented earlier, if you want to look at your I-94 record, the immigration courts that are in your state, and of course the visa lottery. This last one, this is a big one because there are so many websites on Google that look like this one and they are not. Okay, they have the emblem for the US government. They're really very professional when they want to scam you. So, and they take money. The diversity lottery program is free. You shouldn't be paying anybody any money unless it's a legal service, to file. But otherwise, if they're not lawyers, you shouldn't be paying anybody. Okay. That's it. I'm just going to wrap it up. Just leave my information. Please like the Facebook page. I always have updates on the latest stuff that's happening with immigration. As soon as I read about it, it's on there. I have great people helping me with that too. So we're always constantly updating the Facebook page. I'm trying to do more YouTube videos in 2020 to kind of, have little informational videos about what to do in certain situations. So we're working on that in the new year. I really hope that this was helpful. And the people who are viewing and who are here, please give us your feedback too, because we are planning on having this again in the next couple of months on different topics. We'd like to know what you are interested in hearing about. I tried to make everything very general today, but if there are specific topics, please let us know. If you have criticism about anything, I take it pretty well. So don't worry. Just send us an email or the Facebook page, and we'll work on it for next time. But thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.